All right. Good morning, Doug. We're back today. Won't be published on YouTube, at least not in the very near future, because we have got another strike for misinformation, apparently. And so we can't publish on YouTube for another couple of weeks. And then I think one more strike and we're out, I think is the way it goes. So, we'll see.
Do you think it'll be permanent?
I believe after the third one, it's permanent. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we could
Oh,
either come up with cutesy sayings like where people don't say vaccine, instead they say, so they make some cutesy word for it instead, and we could code our language into nonsense and that few people will understand, or we can self-censor, or we can just let the chips fall where they may.
or I guess we could ask our listeners and viewers that want to stay with us to watch on these other things. Or
That's right.
actually, it might make more sense since it's a fluid situation for people that are listening or watching to send us an email so we can reach out to you and tell you where we are. No obligation to either do that or to follow us, but you might want to know.
Yeah. One thing you can do is if you go to dougcasey.substack.com, you can get on our email list there and you'd at least see about updates there. Of course, you could join the private member community at phyle.co. That's phyle.co. So those are options too. But either way, we're going to do what we do and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's all you can do is do what you do. At least if you think you're doing the right thing, and I think we are.
I think so too.
Anyway, other unimportant, but nonetheless worth talking about for a moment things is I've gotten into the custom, as you recall, to see who was famous that was born or died on this day throughout history, or a major event that happened. And there's actually nothing on this day that I consider of import, but just an FYI, today's the day is George R. Martin's birthday, Sophia Loren's birthday, and who else did I make a note of here? John Sibelius, the Finnish composer that composed Finlandia, which is a pretty good piece, actually. So that's all well and good. But going down the list of lesser known or less popular or less important people, today is the day that Upton Sinclair was born, I think in the 1880s. And he's well known for having written a muckraking novel called The Jungle, which exposed, justifiably, I think, how terrible the Chicago stockyards were and how messy and unsanitary and so forth. Well and good. Problem is that Sinclair was a doctrinaire socialist and wanted the government to solve the problem, whereas the market solves these problems much better. So he's indirectly responsible for the creation of the FDA.
Yeah. Yeah, that was required reading. I think maybe it was my freshman year in high school. Do you think they make the kids read that book anymore?
It's kind of dated, but the thing is that there are plenty of doctrinaire socialists with similar modern books to replace them. And this kind of got me thinking, Upton Sinclair, horrible doctrinaire socialist. I mean, crypto-communist, really. And who else was born today? Leo Strauss, who was the kind of the founder of the neocon movement. And neocons, I guess, can best be defined as people that used to be Marxists or Leninists or Trotskyites that later that kept a lot of that philosophy, but decided, we need more wealth. And the free market creates wealth. So let's let the free market go and we'll just tax it and regulate it. And actually, that made sense. So they get the power that they want and they get a lot more money for their power. So Leo Strauss is kind of in back of this whole movement that I guess Paul Wolfowitz is a prime exemplar, but so many of these that you hear about today are neocons.
When did they take
Socialists.
the when did they take the turn into invading other countries as kind of part of the core doctrine?
Well, that was a Trotskyite thing. So maybe these people are all basically Trotskyites. I hate to get into the weeds with, the beliefs of these psychologically aberrated people. But the important thing with Leo Strauss, I think, is that he was very aggressive from a foreign policy point of view and a socialist, but thought, well, we got to tone that down and let the free market go so we have more money to do terrible things with. So I think I'm correct in saying that, but I don't want to speak for Leo Strauss. I hate to speak for crazy people or evil people. And there's a third person who was born today, still alive, unlike these others. It's Lloyd Blankfein, who ran Goldman Sachs back when it was the Vampire Squid, subsequently replaced by BlackRock. So not a good guy. I'm sure that, he praises capitalism because he's a multi-billionaire, but it's not capitalism, it's fascism. So anyway.
Well, that's interesting. Sometimes Encyclopedia Britannica has some interesting things to show us.
Well, you can't trust anything the Encyclopedia Britannica says today. But that said, I doubt if they'd fabricate George R.R. Martin's birthday. I mean,
I doubt that. It's only the big lies that matter.
Yeah, exactly. The little lies are fine.
So one of the things I want to talk about today is, in light of the recent strike we got for misinformation, is to talk about this push to regulate and control information, to control ideas. And, this got a big push back in 2022 when the Department of Homeland Security rolled out their disinformation whatever department. And that was going to be head by a very clown-like figure, this Nina Jankowicz, I think her name was. And so it got a big push, but then when her TikTok videos came out, it kind of was laughed off stage. But it's coming back now.
Up to now. What is Nina up to these days?
I saw that she registered as a foreign agent under FARA regulations. That was the last headline I saw about her.
Oh, foreign agent for who? Do they have to designate that?
Yeah, they would have to. I can look that up if you give me a second. Let's see. Yeah, let's hold on. I'd have to edit some of this if I can't find it fast enough. Oh, where is it? Yeah, no, I don't see it right now. Hold on. It's not showing up in Google right at the moment. Do you remember her videos with her sing-along she would do?
Yes, I mean, she was actually halfway competent as a musical comedy kind of type singer. Yeah. Right?
Clearly a theater kid, I think, if nothing else.
Well, I hate to say this, not knowing anything about her or her background, but if you have to register as a foreign agent, who could it be for? An African or South American country? Most unlikely. An Asian country? Well, maybe China, but not Russia, certainly. Maybe the Ukraine. I'll guess it's almost certainly Israel. And I hate to say that because you say the word Israel in any way that's not praising, you're automatically anti-Semitic. But I'll bet when you look it up, it's got to be Israel.
It looks like it's associated with the Center for Information Resilience, a British organization devoted to countering disinformation online.
Oh, so it's Britain then, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Who would have guessed?
Yeah. So well, and that kind of leads to the new push that is occurring for this misinformation. Obviously, well, the things that we said that got us a strike are things that I feel like we could have said a couple of months ago. So it seems to me that the checks are ramping up, and the earlier this week, the UK passed this online safety bill that has some Orwellian consequences. It allows under certain circumstances, them to create backdoors into encryption so that whatever encrypted messaging systems you're seeing can be checked to make sure you're not sending the bad ideas across any of these systems. It also, as I understand it, makes it so that if you're going against the official narrative, that you could be subject to fines and imprisonment in the UK now.
Well, and they're doing things of that nature in Canada, and they're definitely doing things of that nature in the EU as well, because we have European friends that are genuinely cautious about saying anything on a Zoom call because it might be picked up and they might be investigated and dinged. So this trend is building and actually getting out of control, I think.
Yeah, let me share my screen with you for a second. I want to show you this relatively short clip, it's like 2 minutes long. I'll play it a little faster of the disgraced former prime minister of New Zealand speaking earlier this week before the United Nations on the dangers of free speech.
An initiative alongside companies and nonprofits to help improve research and understanding of how a person's online experiences are curated by automated processes. This will also be important in understanding more about mis and disinformation online, a challenge that we must, as leaders, address. Sadly, I think it's easy to dismiss this problem as one in the margins. I can certainly understand the desire to leave it to someone else. As leaders, we're rightly concerned that even the most light-touch approaches to disinformation could be misinterpreted as being hostile to the values of free speech that we value so highly. But while I cannot tell you today what the answer is to this challenge, I can say with complete certainty that we cannot ignore it. To do so poses an equal threat to the norms we all value. After all, how do you successfully end a war if people are led to believe the reason for its existence is not only legal but noble? How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists? How do you ensure the human rights of others are upheld when they are subjected to hateful and dangerous rhetoric and ideology? The weapons may be different, but the goals of those who perpetuate them is often the same: to cause chaos and reduce the ability of others to defend themselves, to disband communities, to collapse the collective strength of countries who work together. But we have an opportunity here to ensure that these particular weapons of war do not become an established part of warfare. In these times, I'm acutely aware of how easy it is to feel disheartened. We are facing many battles on many fronts, but there is cause for optimism, because for every new weapon we face, there is a new tool to overcome it. For every attempt to push the world into chaos is a collective conviction to bring us back to order. We have the means. We just need the collective will.
So, Doug, is the point of this YouTube channel to push the world into chaos?
Well, it's further proof that we live in a bizarro world where everything she says, she's doing exactly the opposite of. It's very much this mildly psychotic woman. It's like in Vietnam. We have to destroy the village in order to save it. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much the same meme. And we have to shut down free speech because it's being used as a weapon of war against values we know and love. So you can't talk about all kinds of different things. Yeah. And she's completely serious. And, and I'd go on to say that having lived in New Zealand for years, and I like the country and all that, New Zealand has a lot of problems. Going off on a little tangent, it's that one problem with New Zealand is they definitely suffer from what's known as the tall poppy syndrome, where if you stand out, if you're too successful, or you speak too forthrightly in an individualistic manner, you'll be chopped off like the tall poppy in a field, number one. Number two, it's that how stupid is the average Kiwi that they voted for this woman to be their prime minister? And she is she's actually a communist. She actually is. Although you don't use the word communist, just like this was a little factet about Upton Sinclair, the author of The Jungle that we referenced at the beginning. One of the things that he said is that the average American, and of course he was speaking back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, this area, the average American believes in socialism, but you can't use the word socialism. And he demonstrated this with when he ran for office as a socialist, few votes, ran for office as a Democrat, lots of votes, said exactly the same thing. Anyway, that was, so I'm rather pessimistic that these socialists and people with socialist values are ruling the roost absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, and it's the most dangerous thing for these governments, these people, these parasites with these awful ideas is legitimate, independent intellectual criticism. It's poisonous. It's a disaster for them. And so naturally, they're continuing to redouble their efforts, I guess, in trying to manage this misinformation, as they call it.
Yeah, and it's really rather clever from a rhetorical point of view that she wants to limit free speech, but she's limiting free speech in order to save free speech, so it can't be recognized.
Right. It's like our foreign wars, where it's just spreading democracy after all, right? We're getting rid of your elected leader because democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's pretty much the same approach that that woman that sings that you mentioned,
Jankowicz.
Yes, that she was taking as well. And all these women seem to be very left-wing. Well, women tend to be more left-wing than men as a general rule. I mean, I think it's genetic. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get dinged and finally taken off the thing, a sexist would say.
Right. A sexist, racist, homophobe might say, especially.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anti-Semite also. You got to have that in there as well.
I guess we've covered all the bases in this particular one. So see you guys later or on a separate channel.
Yeah. You know, the other thing I want to talk about was the skills gap. Part of this comes, it's something that's been in the background of my mind, my thinking for a while. And I know we've addressed it a little bit in prior episodes, but you know, it came to light again with this F-35 mishap earlier this week, where you know, the pilot of this $80 million aircraft, this 2.2, I think, trillion dollar platform, ejected for some unknown reason, and then they actually lost the aircraft for quite some time, and sent out a message to the general public asking, you know, it's like an Amber Alert, you know, someone has taken a child. If you see this car, call this number. It was that kind of approach to recover their jet.
Yeah, funny. I mean, you expect to see a picture of the jet on the side of a milk carton, actually.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, you know, the first thing is, yeah, they say it's an $80 million airplane, but to start with, I heard it was a $500 million airplane, and then it was a $200 million airplane. But with Pentagon accounting, such as it is, who knows how much the thing really costs? I mean, we don't really know. Which is one of the reasons why the government is in the dire financial straits that it is. They just don't know what these things cost.
Whatever the accounting was, they didn't have any. Weren't able to keep the transponder on or any other way to locate it, apparently, and had to resort to asking the general public for help, which is hilarious to me.
It's really strange, and it was found. They said the press report said 2 hours from wherever it was. At least what I read said it was 2 hours. I presume that's not 2 hours by car. It must be 2 hours by jet plane speed, about 600 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, and I'd like to know how it finally crashed. Did it run out of fuel? I thought they had radar that tracked it's a stealth plane, so they can't track their own plane. But I thought there were satellites looked down on these things and so forth.
You would think. You would think there'd be some way to do it, something other than the embarrassment you think of having the base commander tweet out to the general public, if you see our plane, let us know.
It's well, I suppose the news cycle will drive on, and we'll never really find out what went on because something else will distract us all. And maybe years in the future, we'll have whatever happened to that. I don't know. It's been deleted or whatever.
Yeah, or maybe some report filed later, just like with the Chinese balloon. Remember the Chinese spy balloon, which now they've admitted collected zero intelligence after the fact, like months later.
Yeah, that's right. It's all forgotten about. And of course, this kind of relates to the war in the Ukraine. Well, that's another third rail we've forgotten to touch. And I'm on another Zoom group with two well-known commentators, not Douglas, Colonel Douglas
McGregor,
not with him, but with two similarly well-known military type commentators. And like McGregor, they all say that the Ukraine is absolutely getting creamed, and everything that we hear about is basically a lie. For instance, the casualty figures, which are very hard to determine for all kinds of obvious reasons. But these guys are of the opinion, as is McGregor, that the deaths on the part of Ukrainian soldiers add up to about 400,000. This is not counting serious injuries, which would have to be about the same number.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, and serious injuries, we're talking about lost limbs and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's shocking. I'm sure if you did a man on the street interview with your typical American who certainly can't point out Ukraine on a map, they would assume still that Ukraine is winning.
Well, and that the Russians are taking those kind of catastrophic losses, but these guys say actually the Russians are taking losses of like 1/8 the amount of that the Ukrainians are. So everything you hear about the war in the Ukraine is a lie. It would appear.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this. Yeah, I mean, this is why the importance of being able to manage information, to be able to control to make sure there aren't independent people commenting on stuff, to make sure that if you're not towing the party line, that you can be deplatformed, censored, fined, and jailed. I mean, these things, as the lies become bigger, the importance of this just grows.
Yeah, I mean, it actually is not economically efficient to keep people from doing things, because then you gotta, have cops on the street corner, and you gotta lock them down. And to keep people from doing things, well, it's actually cheaper and easier to keep them from saying things, which precedes their doing things. But cheaper yet is to keep them from thinking things. So this is what psychological warfare is all about, because that's kind of like a senior thing to either saying or doing. So we have this psy war now where everybody believes in unison things that, from what I hear, I'm not supposed to hear, none of us supposed to hear these things, are just outright lies.
Well, and that's why I think everybody fell for the COVID hysteria to the extent they did, because it was a well-managed information war.
It was an extremely successful psyop. I think it's coming unglued at this point. I hope
so.
Yeah, but we can't be sure. And of course, global warming is still ramping up. Everybody.
Yeah, I heard the head of the UN today, a little clip with him. He said, humanity has opened the gates of hell, referring to what we've done to Mother Earth and how we must take drastic action.
Yeah. And since grade school kids, kindergarten kids have been indoctrinated with this meme, which has been burned into their young minds, it's going to take years to undo that.
Yeah, I mean, they come out legitimately thinking the stuff that Greta says as the actor she is, that their future's destroyed, that they're all going to die unless we just stop oil now. when they don't realize that oil is the bedrock of civilization.
How dare you? It really is a comedy act. It really is. It really is funny. And I think we were talking earlier, and you mentioned part of this continuing comedy act is you said that the Senate, or perhaps the Congress, has allowed, who's that person
Fetterman.
Disabled? Yes.
Fetterman.
And he's allowed to appear and speak in his hoodie.
Yeah, they removed, or they altered the dress code. That's the longstanding, a coat and tie requirement to be in the chamber of the Senate. And even today, I saw he was presiding over the Senate in his hoodie. Amazing.
Well, perhaps that correlates to some degree with that clown from the Ukraine,
Zelensky.
Yeah, exactly. Showing up because he shows up in his faux military T-shirt.
A little Munchin guy in his tight green T-shirt. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's right. I'm on the front lines, but he doesn't have anything to worry about because after he's kicked out, and he will be, one way or another, the Panama papers from years ago, disclosed that he was worth several $100 million, and you don't get that much from being an actor or comedian in a backward Eastern European country.
And that's before the gravy train really started. So you can imagine now.
Well, and the other thing, there was a news item which has not been talked about, is that the entire upper level of the Defense Department in Ukraine has been fired for corruption. So
what do you know?
I mean, the fish rots from the head down. It's true, but it's rather bold of him to fire these people below him. And I'm sure that they're going to have some tales to tell if they don't gradually disappear with accidents or whatever, for having stolen. But, and in today's world, I mean, stealing $1 million now, these guys would have stolen tens of millions of dollars or more. They thought they could get away with it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I mean, they couldn't replace Zelensky because they've lionized him as this Churchillian figure, and and it was part of the psyop. So, they don't want to taint him with that. But from a practical matter, his lieutenants were probably legitimately getting in the way of them sending more bodies to be ground up by Russia.
Maybe that's the reason. Maybe in addition to stealing as much as they can, these guys actually don't want to see their troops used as cannon fodder. That's possible too. Could be both.
Yeah. Oh man, what a disaster the situation is. And the U.S. The glimpse with the F-35 about the state gave us a glimpse on our high-tech military and how powerful it really is. I mean, we know that we've kind of run out of a lot of armaments because of our shipping, especially the mortar shells to Ukraine. But I saw this other article that related to F-35 thing, I thought, in the Wall Street Journal, talking about that there was a need, that the Coast Guard determined that we needed more ice-breaking vessels. And so they had a $13 billion order years ago to begin working on it. And they discovered along the way that they literally lost the skill to make them because there's specialty skills, welding and others required in shaping this super thick steel and the specific other alloys that have to be involved. And they can't do it. They don't know how to make them.
Makes sense because these are specific skills that you need, not just training, but experience actually doing this. These guys retire and they're not there. And I think I read that the U.S. Coast Guard only has 2 active heavy-duty icebreakers right now.
And one of them is like somehow it's being for 6 months a year. It has to be out of service for some reason. Whereas Russia has 3 dozen, and China has 6 or 8. And I also saw something else that said that China had something like 200 times. That sounds like a crazy number, but I think I have it right. The shipbuilding capacity that we have here in the U.S. at this point.
Maybe that's true because we don't really build ships in the U.S. anymore. I mean, we just don't do that. It's all subcontracted to South Korea or other places that used to be Japan that specialize in this type of thing.
What are we going to do? Whereas they're inching us closer and closer to World War III, and we find that our tech has limitations, potentially can be hacked, and we have the resources, the supply chain, any of that to be able to build like we once were able to. How do we go to war with that?
Well, and here's another thing. It's that it's said that the U.S. spends 800 billion or a trillion. Who knows what the numbers really are, but it's in that area, I suppose. That's what they say. On so-called defense. It's funny. It used to be called the Department of War, but then they changed that to the Department of Defense. It's part of the general degradation of the language. We don't call things what they really are.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're spending all this money and not getting anything that's really terribly useful for killing enemy soldiers, which I guess what war is supposed to be about. Although starting with World War II, war really became more about destroying the enemy population, bombing cities full of civilians, as much as destroying enemy soldiers. Nobody really talks about that. Perhaps as much.
Yeah, I mean, that's what one of the things like Curtis LeMay is famous for, right? He's like, you have to fight them how you have to fight them. You go to where their people are, make them beg for mercy.
Yeah, and his argument was that, well, these people are supporting a nasty regime. Yes, it was a nasty regime. Yes, it was. But so these civilians are supporting it. So you got to take them out. All right, I see the argument. But is that any different than previous wars? Well, this is worth a conversation, perhaps, at some point. But we ought to be getting something. If you're going to piss all this money away, exactly where's it going? What do you get for it? Because recently in the news, hypersonic missiles have become known. And these are missiles that are traveling at 14 or 15 times the speed of sound, which is way, way too fast to be shot down or even detected. And apparently the Russians and the Chinese have used missiles of this nature. It's said, once again, what do we know? But that huge underground ammo depot in the Ukraine that blew up about a year ago.
Yeah, that was a hypersonic.
That's supposedly the case, that could penetrate that deeply because you're going that fast. You can get through a lot of reinforced concrete. So these things are capable of totally destroying aircraft carrier groups. Well, of course, a ballistic missile can do that too. But you can take down a ballistic missile because you see it when it goes way up and way down. And they have anti-missile missiles that might be able to help. But a hypersonic missile coming in at much lower altitudes can't be stopped. So you can forget about the carrier groups from that point of view.
Right. And I saw that the U.S. I know has been working on these for a while. And I think when they saw what Russia was doing with them, that they actually had them and deployed them successfully, that they sort of ramped up their efforts. And I saw a headline just maybe yesterday that the Army planned to deploy one before the end of the year. We'll see how that works. But certainly I heard even McGregor saying that the use of these hypersonic missiles in many ways obviates the need for tactical nukes because the destructive power is so massive and they're so accurate and these things can't be stopped, unlike the tactical nukes.
Good point. And perhaps going beyond that, there are rumors of all kinds of really neat weapons that are being developed in the area of laser and ultrasound and so forth that might be deployable.
Yeah, maybe that's where all the money's gone. It's gone on all these different kinds of energy weapons and so forth that we just haven't seen them actually in the field yet.
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
Unfortunately, I think we're going to see it. I don't think it's that far off.
That's right. Why should this be the first time in human history when these people don't act like crazy chimpanzees?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and one other bad note on this military thing I think is important is that I saw a post on Twitter from a guy who was quoting a report from the Army War College, suggesting that perhaps the all volunteer service had reached its end of usefulness in light of the recruiting problems, but also in light of maybe the need to keep a larger standing force, or at least to be able to ramp up a larger force when you need it. So that means the draft coming back, and that's a terrible prospect. I think that is almost certainly in our future if World War III is in our future.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, these people in the government like to get people in uniform dressed the same way, indoctrinated to think the same way, and yeah, sure, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though soldiers aren't as useful as they used to be with all these type of weapons.
That's true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this works out, but it's clear that there's a ramping of the war drums across the board, and also there's this really scary gap in competency, and that combination together, I think, is going to lead to some disaster of some kind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I keep coming. She's not a real admiral, or he's not a real admiral, but Rachel, somebody that dresses in the admiral's costume and
from Pennsylvania. Yeah.
I mean, there's just too much of that type of thing going on today. George Patton would be absolutely appalled.
I think George Patton would lead some Army division on DC at this stage. I think he would think there's a problem.
He might, just as in the years before Patton, Smedley Butler almost did that against the Roosevelt regime.
They were recruiting him for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, in a way, it's too bad that he didn't do it. But well, we may find out next year what kind of a government is imposed on the U.S. But I don't think it's going to be business as usual. I wonder if it's possible to place a bet in Las Vegas. It would have to be a correctly phrased bet that it's not going to be business as usual in this country after November of 24.
Well, I don't know if I don't think there's a line on that yet, but as things ramp up, I think it might emerge. So maybe we'll be able to place that bet.
There's only about a half a dozen really serious things that could actually happen. It would change things.
We know that there's the faith in the election process, the belief that it settles the score, that it has a resolution is gone. It started with when Trump came in and Hillary, of course, saying it was a rigged election, the Russians, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, in the last one, the other way. So I think both sides, whoever wins, they will believe that it was cheated, but now we've crossed the final rail of things you can't say, is that elections can be rigged.
Oh, we missed that one. Oh my God. All right. I'd say the chances of our taking our third strike, it's almost a certainty at this point. I was reading the Washington Post today. As you know, I couldn't help myself from taking advantage of an ultra cheap offer they had to subscribe just to see how bad things are within the Beltway. And the Washington Post it is actually shocking and shameful how bad it is. It's turned into a real fag hag publication where it's all ultra lefty, and there was every article. I mean, it's amazing. And so I often read the comments to the editor, and they often get 1,000 of them on all kinds of articles that you'd never expect 1,000 people would write in on. And the people that write in are overwhelmingly, in fact, dare I say, entirely ultra leftists that don't think that they're. So it's probably even worse than we think it is, based on that.
Good news. All right.
Yeah. Well, that's right. If you're a Nietzschean, and I am, it's that which is about to fall deserves to be pushed.
Exactly. And that's
It's
why
just
they
gonna
want,
be,
that's
it's
why
just
they
gonna
want
be,
to get rid of misinformation.
it's just gonna be so inconvenient. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Just get back down here to Uruguay. It'll be tranquilo as always, I'm sure.
I just hope that when I'm able to return to the U.S., that I don't have 5 or 10 families of migrants living in my house.
That's a good point. Have John hold on the fort.
It won't be my house anymore. So maybe this stuff is going on throughout human history. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, good point. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today, Doug. This is good. I'll get this published on Twitter and Rumble and Telegram, all the other places we can do it. And eventually, once our timeout is over with YouTube, I'll upload it there too, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I can't wait to see what happens with this as well as so many other things. It's like a free sitcom, if you would.
It is. It's hilarious. If you can, and I think Jeff Berwick has been very helpful in helping me adopt the proper mentality toward the situation, to see it as a comedy, and rather than being overly involving myself in stuff that really is still far removed from me.
Yeah, and people should turn into Jeff's peregrinations with one of the great heroes of video today, Lucy.
Absolutely.
Comments are always very appropriate and to the point.
Sometimes Jeff gets off track, but she always brings him back,
She does. She's a very wise little chihuahua.
She is. All right, Doug. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.